Okay, I show at 7 o'clock, so thank you everyone for joining on time. I'm going to get started. My name is Kathy Lord. I'm here today hosting a workshop about moving from chaos to clarity, resetting, reframing, and rebuilding your financial foundation. So thank you all for joining me. And just for your awareness, we are recording this session today. Mostly it's intended just for marketing purposes as well as for my own lesson learned opportunity. So as I work through the material, if I want to see about revisiting the presentation or the workshop that I'm doing, I'll be able to course correct it down in the future. All the material that I'm sharing, I see a couple people joining us. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to put in the chat what city and state you're joining us from, I'm just curious where everyone's calling from. We're going to be using the chat, so if you need any help finding that, it should be at the bottom of your Google Meet screen. The information I'm sharing is educational and information purposes only. It is not intended to be financial advice. I am not a licensed financial advisor, so I just wanted to make you aware. Some additional housekeeping details. Again, we're going to be using the chat a lot today, but you can also keep yourself off camera and go on mute, or if you want to ask a question, feel free to either raise your hand electronically, or you can take yourself off mute and just ask your question through the dialogue. I really would hope that this workshop is going to be interactive, but if you do have some background noise, if you could please mute yourself, or if you have any technical issues, feel free to put it in the chat. I'm going to try to be monitoring it today. And then please stick around, everyone, because I'll be sharing that free workbook a little bit later. So a little bit about my story. I just realized I'm wearing the same top in my photo today. My story is, again, I'm Kathy Lord. I'm a financial coach. I started in the early 90s going to night school, and like many people, we heard about good debt and bad debt. And I got into credit card debt, about $10,000 worth of credit card debt. When I met someone, he was a little leery of me being in credit card debt, so he actually helped me quite a bit to pay off my debt as we were moving into more of a serious relationship. But I also was blessed because my dad at the time, when I got my first job, my full-time job while I was going to night school, he's like, Kathy, you got to get into saving for retirement. Put your money into this thing called 401k. So thank you, Dad. He helped me to kind of really set aside a strong financial foundation for myself, as well as being ready for retirement. And after 30 years in corporate world, when they asked about taking a buyout, I raised my hand and said, sure. I'm going to do that. And so with that, I launched my business. I completed the Ramsey Solutions Master Training, and I continue to grow my business with leads and referrals. I also have an identical twin. She is on the call. You're not seeing double, everyone. That is my identical twin, Cindy. She is my accountability partner. And she has been so helpful to kind of help me practice for this workshop and reading over my material. So thank you, Cindy, for your help with that. I love to travel, read, and I have 2 college-age sons as well. So let's dive in. Today, we're here to talk about what's causing you chaos. Today's agenda is laid out. I'm hoping to cover 3 things. But before we talk about that, I wanted to learn, can you please put in the chat, what's causing chaos in your world right now? What is it? How are you feeling? Maybe overwhelmed, or maybe what's working in your world? Like, what's causing you to stay up at night or giving you some anxiety? Welcome, everyone. I saw we had some couple people join. Please put in the chat what might be causing chaos or overwhelm in your world right now. A lot of the times I hear from my clients, they're living paycheck to paycheck. Or, there's drama right now. I say drama with, looking for new jobs. We're currently, there's more people looking for jobs than there are jobs available. So the workplace is a little difficult right now. So put in the chat what is causing you a little bit of chaos. Michelle, inflation. Yeah, that is going to the grocery store is expensive. Julie winding down from a long-term job, that I bet is one, it's chaos, but also, Julie, what's interesting is how do you move away from what used to be jam-packed calendar? I've heard a lot in talking with people about retirement is easy, but it's also overwhelming because it's all brand new. Eric mentioned he's trying to transition out of a corporate job within a couple of years. Kudos for you, because the retirement transition is a little scary and exciting all at the same time. Allison, similar boat. So everyone, Shannon, lots of unknowns. There is a lot right now, a lot, especially too in the political arena. Not to get too much into the weeds there, but there's a lot of drama out there politically that if you watch the news, I've been trying to step away from it because it's just too anxiety driven. But thank you everyone for sharing your awareness about what's causing chaos. What I would like to encourage you as you think about what you wrote in the chat, pull out your phone, pull out a notebook in your phone or maybe a piece of paper, write down what you put in the chat because we're going to use that a little bit later. We're going to think about what did that statement about what's causing us a little bit of overwhelm, and we're going to work on activities and exercises a little bit later to help you build some guidance and direction as we close up the workshop. So today's goals today are, I really want us to work together to reset our mind shift, our mindset. And with that, we're going to clarify your goals. We're going to specifically work on tackling one goal that hopefully will help you to overcome what's causing you chaos in your world. And then with that, we're going to build a new foundational plan for you going forward with some actionable items. So we're really focused on recognizing, everyone, you're not alone. For the little bit of time that we have here today, I just really want to acknowledge overwhelm is real. So many of us are working, we're working really hard in our jobs, raising our families, whether that's younger kids or even taking care of older parents. There's a lot going on. I mentioned the workplace. There's a lot of transition or a lot of unknowns. Retirement, is Social Security going to be there or not? There's just a lot of unknowns that we have to prepare for. And so hopefully we're going to develop with these 3 steps some clarity and some guidance for you going forward. And really our goal is to shift, reframe, and rebuild a foundational plan. But it's also acknowledging maybe we made some mistakes in the past and we're going to overcome them and we're going to let them go. So let's dive into that and put in the chat, what do you think chaos looks like? When you talked a little bit earlier about having family issues or, exploring what retirement will look like, what do you think is chaotic about that? Can you put that in the chat? Or is there anyone who might want to share a story, maybe for a couple minutes, maybe be a little vulnerable with this work group, talking about what might chaos look like in their life right now? Michelle wrote uncertainty about the future. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey,
Jessica?
I'm Jessica from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I used to have some pretty serious financial issues to the point where I didn't have any savings. If I ever had an emergency, I had no parachute. And now I have one. And so chaos to me is not having something for like a rainy day or a medical emergency,
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing. And I think that's where, again, it's what the chaos, I think, for us is really reflecting and diving into what is it that's causing chaos so that we can hopefully overcome it. Victoria, go ahead. You raised your hand.
Hi, yes, my name's Victoria. Despite making probably close to over 90, like right in the 90 to 95 range, I'm always living paycheck to paycheck. So I am working with a Ramsey coach.
Good.
Yep. And it's about changing behaviors. I've never had to adhere to anything because I've always been kind of bailed out. And I still have that, I don't do credit cards anymore. I don't do that anymore, but I have access to funds if I need it. And it's not good because I have no restraint. And so my issue is behaviors. It's
Mhm.
always been behaviors. So
Mhm.
it's a way of thinking. And there's other things I could share, but it's really, I really need to be thinking, like, I mean, just I need to start saving, and I just struggle to because I don't adhere, and I'm using Every Dollar. I've been using the Every Dollar app for probably a little over a year, and I love it because it's just the budgeting piece. It's
Mhm.
not the the checking account balance or anything. It's just the budget allocation per line, but I don't stay in it. And so, and I kind of, yeah, so I got some heart issues too. I kind of don't care. And that's really horrible for me to admit. But I'm
Mhm.
just going to say it, and I need to start caring. So,
Well, and
yeah,
I think it's like you said, Victoria, you probably care, but life happens, doesn't it? And sometimes it's just so difficult to get really focused on it sometimes. Do you feel like
I have a,
that?
yeah, I do. I've had a financial accountability partner for 5 years, and she has said some super profound things. And I've also observed and lived it partly with her is that when she can't afford something, she didn't get it.
Mhm.
And I don't know that I don't know that I somehow find a way to get it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so it and I'm kind of driven a little bit by materialism. So I'm seeing where my problems are. I'm seeing where the chinks in my armor are. And I also will say this is my last thing. And this is all behavior driven. I also see that when I become uncomfortable or bored, especially boredom, I then make really poor choices with spending. Yeah, I go online. So
Uh-huh.
so I need to, I want to change the thinking of when when I have downtime, and I don't want to say bored because I'm not really bored and I don't have any downtime, but even when I have 10 minutes, I have always got to be looking at something. So I've got some stuff going on in my internal world that needs to calm down so that I'm not chasing my tail, and I'm coming to my intentions are great at the beginning of every month. I start out really well. I pay my obligations up front. I'm doing it really well. But by about the 15th, or about the 18th or the 20th is when I start getting sloppy. And that's the time I need to
Yeah.
start to really focus. Like I need to really just say, So
Mhm.
I'm seeing where I'm getting into trouble. Thank you.
Well, hopefully, this will give you an opportunity to reflect again and really dig deep. Like you said, you seem to be very aware of your patterns, if you will, Victoria. So that's a great start. Hopefully, as we work through this exercise, you'll continue to have some time for reflection and some space for that. Julie, the focus fatigue, I think that too is, you get so focused on an outcome. Like for me, a little bit was, okay, I'm so focused on retiring early. And then when you get there, like, okay, what's next? And again, hopefully everyone is acknowledging and recognizing chaos looks different for everyone. And I think that's too be very aware that someone's chaos could become completely different from someone else's. So it's just recognizing, one, what's that chaos, and then how is it pertain to us specifically in our world. And don't try to generalize or say, yeah, there's probably people in that same space as you, but we all have different opportunities and different issues to kind of work through. And so with that, the other thing I want you to think about is when we think of the chaos, we also need to think about, what does clarity look like? Like if I had peace with what was causing chaos in my world, what would that look like? I really want to encourage you to kind of jot that down. That says, when we were talking a little bit earlier, Julie, when you mentioned about the focus fatigue, like if you could have positivity and clearness on some of your chaos, what would that look like? Does anyone want to share, either come off mute or put in the chat? I know, again, you talked a little bit, Julie, about, too many things that capture your time and money. Like if you had clearness in your space or in your mind, what could that look like? What would, that clearness look like? Michelle, I like your confidence to handle whatever comes. Julie, did you want to share?
Yeah, I've just spent the last several months working on getting rid of things that don't serve me very well.
I love that.
Just, it's not all gone yet. There's going to be some stuff for a while, but there were lots of people and things that were taking time and energy from me that were for their benefit, not for mine, which I don't mind doing a little bit of that, but I was doing too much of it. So
Healthy boundaries are good.
yes, exactly. That's it.
Jessica, did you want to share something?
Sure. I don't know if this is more of a goal, but it came to mind when you were asking the question. To me, like when I think of clarity, like when I know like I'm going to be in a good place with my money is the day that any job I take or however, if I'm an entrepreneur, I have my own business. If I have enough money in my savings account to where if I'm in a situation that's just not aligned with my values, I can say this is not for me and I can walk away because I have enough money backing me,
I love that. Like, how freeing would that be?
Yeah. Free. So clarity to me is freedom.
Yeah.
That was good about helping me connect those dots.
Oh yeah, that's really wonderful. Cindy, we're both spreadsheet gals. So she's like, I love my spreadsheet. So again, clarity can just have your numbers, having your numbers, right, Cindy? And yeah, so that's wonderful. And thank you, Michelle. That is kudos because that is very, very important going forward. Okay. And so with that, number one step, I mentioned there was 3 steps we're going to go through today with today's agenda or our goals from the workshop today. The first one is resetting your mindset. We've talked a lot about chaos. We've talked a little bit about what it meant to you. But a lot of it, I think, too, is we all bring sometimes when we're trying to grow or overcome something, we bring our baggage with us. We bring the past, those mistakes, the guiltiness that we might have. And so I really want to take a moment to, have you pause and have reflection on, when I move forward, I've got to let go of whatever happened in the past. I'm going to move forward with strength. And I did this without even realizing it because I don't know if you guys know the Frozen movie, when the Disney movie Frozen came out and she's singing that song, let it go, let it go. I embrace that as one of my affirmation songs because I would let the worry linger. And I would just like worry. And I needed to build something. And for me, it had to be a tangible something to help me to let go of the past or to let go of a frustration or just let go of a mistake that I made. And so I started embracing that song, but then I also started acknowledging it physically to kind of remind myself, get it off your back, Kathy. And so I really want to encourage everyone, part of moving forward is letting go of whatever past happened and moving forward with positivity and embracing the potential. And, changing your mindset could be different based on your circumstances. It could be different based on, what was causing you that chaos, but really keep that in mind going forward. Looks like Eric put something in the chat. A good book is by J.L. Collins called The Simple Path to Wealth. Okay, I'll have to check that out. Thank you, Erica. Appreciate that recommendation. And then Michelle mentioned, what is that? Demure, Michelle has to say solution fund. I don't know if I know that one. Michelle, would you come off mute and explain that comment there? Oh, that's instead of FU money. Okay. Thank you for sharing, everyone in the chat. Again, resetting your mindset is letting go of the past and again, moving forward and really acknowledging that permission to learn, grow, and begin again. So that's number one that we want to work on. And really think about when you thought about what you wrote earlier about what was causing chaos and what clarity looked like, think about 1 or 2 things that you could do to acknowledge that chaos that's been happening in the past. And if any of it is driven by mistakes or guilt, write yourself a note about letting that go and forgiving yourself and just moving forward with positivity. The next thing is getting clarity on our goals. A lot of times when I work with my clients, the very first thing when we have our session is we talk about our values and our goals. And so specifically in this workshop, I was hoping to work together with all of you to think about setting one SMART goal so that as you walk away from this session, you're already going to be ready to go because you've got one SMART goal. And so those of you who are not familiar with the SMART process, please give me a second to kind of explain that. The SMART process is setting a specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely goal or timetable goal. And so with that, we're going to dive into setting a new goal for you after this session so that you can really think about overcoming that chaos with clarity because you've now got a new goal with some action steps moving forward. So remember what you wrote down earlier and let's dig into this. Feel free to put anything in the chat if you have any questions. Again, raise your hand. The first step is being specific. And so with that, what exactly do you want to accomplish? We talked a little bit, let me scroll up a little bit to remind myself what we were talking about earlier. We talked a little bit about there's a lot of unknowns right now. Eric is trying to transition out of a corporate job within a couple of years. So what specifically are you trying to accomplish that might be causing you chaos or giving you some anxiety right now? Think about what that would be. Maybe jot it down in your phone or put it on a sheet of paper. Feel free to put it in the chat. You need to kind of really be specific about what it is you want to accomplish. The example I was using on the presentation is many of us have consumer debt. We want to get out of it. Well, we need to acknowledge what it is for us to accomplish something. We got to know what it is we're trying to accomplish. The next one is the measurement. And when you think about the measurement, a lot of it is not only just how will I accomplish the goal, but how am I going to be tracking my progress in that goal? So it's really important for you to think about, one, how do I define the goal if it's not very clear initially when you were talking about it specifically, but also how are you going to measure it? So again, our example for someone who wanted to get out of debt was, well, first I got to know how much debt I have. And then how am I going to track my progress towards it? And so they were going to monitor it monthly. Someone might say, I want to monitor more frequently. Someone may say, I don't want to monitor it as frequently. The main guidance I would give you is oftentimes with your goals, at a minimum, you should be looking at it quarterly. I prefer monthly myself. The next one is it achievable? So many times we have a lot going on in our world. And one of the things I want you to be mindful of is I was very specific with my notes. If you'll see, I said, is it realistic for you right now? If you've got kids in school, you're caring for your grandparents, for your parents or your grandparents, work is crazy hectic, you could be going to school or you're taking on a big project, you don't really have a ton of bandwidth. And so really be mindful. It's okay to set a goal, but it's got to be achievable. And it might be, instead of giving yourself large action items to think about some small steps that you could take. I think it's really important for you to have achievable opportunities here because we really don't want to set you up for failure. Cindy put in the chat, I set different goals in different phases of life and give yourself grace not to have the same goals all the time. Oh, very insightful. Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate that. Yes, you could have different goals based on what life throws at you, maybe what, if, there's something specific you want to accomplish for either goal or maybe it's a goal around work or it could be personal or even for your family. That's very important. And it's also too, like your steps could be different if something interrupts your world. We're going to talk a little bit about roadblocks later. So keep that in mind. Also, it's relevancy. I really want you to think about when you think about your goal of how am I going to overcome my chaos? Like what's really at the crux, something that I want to overcome? Be very specific about why it's important. I find, we all know this. When you set a goal in January, why do we fall off the track? It's because it doesn't have meaning. It's too overarching and not specific and or meaningful to us. And so I really want to encourage you, really dig into why is this goal very important for you? because if it's not important to you right now, then it's very difficult for you. If you don't really detail it, it's difficult for you to overcome it and keep at it weeks and months down the road. So really be really specific, and you may not accomplish this line item today. It's okay if it takes you a couple days, maybe into the weekend. Really reflect on it. For this example, someone's consumer debt was keeping them up at night. Like they couldn't sleep because they kept worrying about, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to, the credit card companies continue to call. How do they get out of that craziness? As well, being in credit card debt was stopping them from investing in retirement. And so there was the worry out there of pending retirement, because unfortunately, we all continue to age. You can't stop the clock. So really that relevancy, I think this is one of the hardest parts but really I encourage you to really reflect on it and really look to be mindful and be specific with this particular step. And then time bound. A lot of people are like, Kathy, I don't know what the timeline is going to be. It's just not known for me right now. And I would just encourage you, think about, you probably had something in your mindset that you weren't sure. Was it realistic? And so just jot that down. The beautiful thing is you can always tear it up, throw it away, start again. But you should have something to kind of wrap your brain around of how soon do you want to accomplish this goal. And it could be a couple months. It could be, a couple years. Just keep that in mind. It could be something that is either something that could be modified later on, either more time or less time, but try to have something in mind. And again, even if you reflect on it for a couple days while you gather some facts, that's okay. And so again, I wanted to give you an example. The other thing I didn't talk about, it's also important, everyone, that you print out and you show your goals somewhere in your house. I would really encourage you. I have mine put up on my office wall in my bedroom here. And you could put it on a mirror. You could put it on your refrigerator. I would really encourage you. I'm going to give you a workbook page where it's one of your printable pages where you could actually print out this goal page and actually post it on your wall. I'd really encourage you to do that. If you wanted to see some example, I got some examples up there. Oh, Shannon, I just saw your note. I really liked, yes, you can have goals that are short-term, mid-term, or long-term goals. And hey, guess what, everyone? You can dictate what that timeline looks like. And so again, if you wanted to make bite-sized pieces for maybe a long-term goal, feel free to have a short-term goal so you can feel more success and more accomplishment. That's great. Shannon, all three at once, sometimes that can feel overwhelming, but if you're game, for me, I think the most important one should be your number one, but maybe you have some alternative goals, or maybe you've got a short-term goal that, is overarching into your long-term goals, all great wisdom. So here were some examples I just wanted to share with you. Someone was trying to save for their honeymoon. And so you'll see in here, when we were working on the prior slide about those 5 items, basically what you want to do is what you wrote down for those 5 items, you want to glom it together into your SMART goal. And so if you read through these, you'll see each one of those steps that we covered in the previous slide is combined into this one SMART goal. And so it can get a little long, but that's okay, because sometimes, again, we want to be specific. We want to remember what was our measurement. So you refresh your memory, how you're going to measure it, confirming that it was attainable, realistic. I already said realistic. Realistic, and then time bound. So again, just some examples. Does any of these resonate with anyone? Oh, by the way, the middle one, the YNAB, is a budgeting app. If you're not familiar with it, it is, you need a budget. I realize not everyone may know that one. That is not one that I use, but I know that's one of the top sellers that are out there. So does any of these goals resonate? Does anyone want to share something that they thought about during our exercise there? Cindy, you like number 1? Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, so when we started out, we were talking about, I think, our challenges that we're having with finances. And right now, medical debt, like medical costs, that just kind of came out of nowhere. And so for me, I'm still calculating like the hard numbers. Like I got to go through some bureaucracy and administrative stuff with the health insurance company, but I've built, of course, a spreadsheet because I'm a spreadsheet person as well. And I'm I'm just looking at, okay, here are the costs that are flying out the window. Here are the actions that I'm learning from the insurance company through all the calls, like what I need to do, the hoops I need to jump through, the administrative stuff I need to do, and the costs, and then what I might be getting back in claims and the timing of that. And so like my goal is to have this wrapped up before the end of the year, because I don't foresee myself needing these services past the end of the year.
Okay. So yeah, so even if that it's only 90 days, if you will, it's still, I think for me, having that goal defined can really keep you on track. Sherry actually put it in the chat. Sometimes it's so hard to stick with it. And so that's why I really encourage you to print it out and put it somewhere where you're going to see it often, because when you see it more frequently, that's when you get a little impulsive and you're like, oh, I want to, you pull that out and you remind yourself, nope, not now. I got to get to my goal. Whatever that goal might be, whether it's financially saving or it's a long-term saving, it's that reminder of why it's important. Like you said, Allison, yes, that refresher of why it's important really helps us, I think, to have success in those goals. So keep that in mind as you're developing that, Jessica, as you're developing some goals around that. Print it out, get it in somewhere top of mind, so that you'll continue to refresh your memory of why it's important for you to achieve that.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good, everyone. I appreciate the participation. And then the third step, we talked again, remembering the mindset shift. We've got to shift towards positivity. We're going to let go of the past. Then we also had to think about number 2 was, what was our goal to overcome that chaos so that we can get that clarity in our world? And now let's build a plan. With that, I really believe when you build a plan, there's 4 steps that you have to keep in mind. The first one is that safety net. We've talked about it earlier. Someone brought up about that emergency fund. Victoria, I know you said you're a Dave Ramsey fan. Dave talks about starter emergency fund, $1,000. I truly believe in that. If you have more than that in your emergency fund because it's more robust, kudos to you. But you need to have some type of a safety net. And any time that we're trying to build a foundational plan, we need to have a little bit of a cushion. And so whether it's $500 or $1,000, I recommend at least $1,000 as a starter emergency fund. You really should have that from a safety net perspective. I think it really helps. It really helps us, hopefully, to not need to draw upon those credit cards. Instead, we use that little emergency fund. Again, it's not meant to be a permanent full-time emergency fund. It's just to get us over these humps of that the world is tossing our way. Then you got to know your numbers. I'm going to be giving everyone, as part of my workbook, a little planner, a one-page planner. You're welcome to print it out. You really should understand what's your income down to the dollars and cents, what your expenses are, when do they come in, what are those obligations, whether they're monthly, weekly, or maybe they're semi-annual or annual obligations. I truly believe in categorizing my budget, because I don't like to get too deep into the weeds on the different vendors or the different companies, that I have there. So again, you just want to know your data. And with that, it's very important that you have a money meeting. I don't like to call it a budget meeting because not everyone likes to deal with the dreaded word budget. But again, I truly believe for us to be financially sound, you really need to look at your money plan the month before, not the month after you have spent. So it's really important when you know your numbers, your budgeting, as well as really defining those numbers and planning for those dollars before the month begins, which then goes into the third bullet, which is you got to give every dollar a job. And with that, it's laying out, if you get $2,000 in income with your first paycheck, every dollar of that $2,000 should be labeled for something. And that's where it's very important, whether you're a spreadsheet, maybe you use an app, or even if it's just a sheet of paper, you really need to define where that money is going. Because unfortunately, if you don't tell where your money is going to go, it's going to find its way out of your checking account. Jessica, she says, I'm not great with numbers, and it really helps you to look at them every day. It just depends what your mindset is. And if kudos to you if you're looking at it. I like to look at my transactions daily. So i.e., if I'm going to be, spending any money, I pull up my phone, I log it in the app, and away I go so that I remember I had spent it. I'm also one of those people where I'll actually look, because my weakness, everyone, is Amazon. That's my weakness. I'll look to see, how am I doing on my Amazon? I call it fun money. How am I doing on my fun money budget? And if I'm close to it, like I think I've got 300 in my fun money Amazon budget. If I'm at 200, well, I only get to spend 100. And so that's why I like to bump up my needs against that budget, because if my Amazon order in my shopping cart is 150, guess what? I got to save some stuff for later and only spend to my budget. And so double checking that data before you hit the buy button is really important. That's why it's important that you give every dollar a job, so you know where it's going to be spent on. And Shannon, yes, it is really hard to argue with those numbers, but I think it's also a good reminder that says you, before the month began, reminded yourself why that budget is set the way it is and the reason behind it. And so it's really important for you to remind yourself about that. I agree, Allison, you can lose focus if you don't remember your why. And often looking at your goals, balancing your budget, and then revisiting how you spent the money at the end of the month, it's all, again, kind of like that circle of life of our financial planning. And then as we've talked, I've been sharing what I do to track your data. Really encourage everyone, don't wait until the end of the month to kind of revisit how you did. I recommend weekly, but I know sometimes people do bi-weekly because life gets busy. Really set aside, that half hour, maybe it's an hour, depending on how much time you spend on it, but really track your data and track how you're doing to your plan. It's really important for you to really think about, how did I want to plan the month? Now I'm in the middle of the month, how am I doing? And then revisit, maybe there's some adjustments that you need to make. Like maybe, the gas bill is so much higher, or maybe, your car insurance went up. And so you really need to revisit your numbers. So it's really important you're tracking it so you can monitor some of those trends. Shannon also put in the chat, and the budget helps with the less than good decisions when you're suffering from decision fatigue at the end of the day. Oh, thank you. That's so mindful, Shannon. You're right. Like that is a thing, just as we all work and we're all busy and things are tugging on us, at the end of the day, you're just so tired. You don't want to think about anything. And you just don't want to be held to like major decisions. So yeah, that's really good a reminder for us. Thank you again for sharing that, Shannon. And so with that, the other thing I want you to think about is, what are some roadblocks that you could hit when you're trying to achieve this goal? I'd really like you to think about, put those in the chat, or maybe think about writing them down in your phone or in your sheet of paper. I believe it's so important that when we develop goals, we really think about what could be some things that are going to derail us, whether it's work, I'm going into, my busy time, or end of the season, in the holidays, I always get sick. And so I'm down for the count for, 1 to 2 weeks. Like, think about what are some roadblocks that you could be hitting to achieve that goal. And then that way, as you think about those roadblocks, I want you to think about maybe 1 or 2 things that you could do to overcome those roadblocks. I think it's really important to think about, how am I overcoming things that are going to hold me up? Because that way, a couple of weeks from now, maybe a month from now, when that happens, guess what? You already got rationale to help you get back on track. So really think about what some of those roadblocks might be, jot them down so that you remember, and then give yourself some solutions. Cindy, she said her challenge is too many trips. I don't know, is that a hard challenge or a good challenge, Cindy? Jessica, you wrote, having to sacrifice some of your self-care and your wants and your spending to cover. Oh, that's such a bummer. I know. But hopefully, again, think about maybe, you talked about like your self-care. Okay, maybe you can't get the whole thing done, but maybe you could get a little thing. Or again, maybe it's just, in this season of life, instead of getting this one thing every month, I can get it every other month or maybe every 3 months. So again, just remind yourself, these are roadblocks. Hopefully you can come up with some solutions. They are the worst, Michelle. Insurance companies can be the worst. And Cindy and I happen to work for one, so we're very familiar with some of those trials and tribulations. But yeah, so I really encourage you, because again, you've got to acknowledge what those roadblocks are, because often if we don't acknowledge what those roadblocks are, in the moment they pop up, and guess what? You set the goal aside and you never pull it out again. So it's really important, I believe, to just think about a couple things. And as you think of things or as they come up, write them on your sheet of paper with your goals, and then think about some action items. And then that way, if it happens again, you've got them written out and you can quickly overcome. Thank you, Michelle. That was very kind. The next thing I really want to encourage you, I talked a little bit about my affirmation song about letting go of my mistakes or some things that I do that I, call myself stupid, or what does Dave call it? The stupid tax. We all make mistakes. We all goof up. We all, sometimes, you're depressed and a little retail therapy, which is outside of your budget. So for me, when I really kind of get sad, or if I'm going into depression, or if I'm kind of like really challenging myself to stay on track to my goal, I have an affirmation song that I always pull out. If you're not familiar, Mandisa has this song called Overcomer. You can find her on the iTunes, but I would really challenge you to find a video that you like. I'm a visual person, and Mandisa has this song where I always go out to YouTube and I watch the video, because it's about Robin Roberts and Scott Hamilton, who were suffering, I believe, through cancer. She included some snippets in her video of them overcoming cancer, growing stronger, overcoming this challenge of this illness, and then seeing them in a more positive light through all their challenges that they've had. And it really helps me to remember that even though life threw me, a wrench in my plan, I can still overcome, I can still achieve what I hope to set. And so with that, I'd really encourage you, finding an affirmation, whether it's a song, maybe it's a quote that you like, or it could just be, maybe it's just connecting with someone that says, hey, would you be my accountability partner? Because I really need someone to boost me up and to really be, a positive influence for me to keep going on this challenge. The other one, my little superwoman there, Cindy helped me with this one, is the Superwoman pose. So if you don't know this pose, it is the Superwoman pose, and often it was referred to me, the story was you stand in front of a mirror and you give yourself affirmation that you can do it. So I will stand in my Superwoman pose in front of the mirror to say, Kathy, you got this. Like, you can do this, you can overcome it. And I just, kind of give myself a little bit of boost, encouraging myself to kind of really, tackle what's giving me some challenges. And I really use these different affirmations to really keep me going forward. Julie, the sound of a video can absolutely change your mood. And again, once you find that one that really resonates with you, like, there's moments of like, yeah, like, why am I letting this bother me? And I like this one because this is where you're like, I still have my health. This was just, some idiot, blah, 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 derailed my project. Or, I just made a poor decision with Amazon. I spent too much. I always got next month. And so again, finding those affirmations are so important, because again, moving towards something with positivity, those affirmations can really just change around your mindset. Sherry, what did you write? A friend gave you the book of The Language of Letting Go. Oh, I have to write that one down. I'm not familiar with that one. That sounds wonderful, because again, it all happens, and we just have to find those things that will help resonate with us to then move us forward. Yes, Cindy, what's the song from Pitbull? Every day above ground is a good day. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate you all sharing. And again, these affirmations really help us to change our thoughts, change our beliefs, and help us to change those behaviors, pull us out of the muck, and then we're back on track. And so with that, as I mentioned in my workbook, I'm going to be, let me put that in the chat here. Everyone who joined us in, oh, that's the wrong link. Hold on, everyone. I will put it in the chat as soon as I stop sharing. I grabbed the wrong link. That was our Google Meet. I will grab that workbook link. It's from my website. Everyone who is part of the workshop today gets a copy of the workbook. You'll see in the workbook, Sherry, I'm so glad you're on this call. Sherry introduced me to David Bach's book about smart women finish rich. And in that, he talked about value circle. And so I incorporated a little bit of my workbook because I truly believe it's important for you to spend a little bit of time about thinking about what is the rationale of our financial values, because that will kind of be your guiding principles as you move forward in your foundational plan. As well, I've got a little exercise in the workbook. If you didn't have a chance to finish working on your SMART goals, you can finish that there. There's also a little reflection page. I'm very much on journaling, being gratitude, really thinking and reflecting. So there's a reflection page to really help pull you from chaos and moving towards that clarity. I mentioned the one-page budget planner is going to be in there where you can kind of document if you need some support, as well as the clarity goal space. I really would encourage you. This is a printable document where you can define your SMART goal, list out a couple action items to achieve it, remind yourself, oh, thank you, Cindy, I appreciate you. Remind yourself what those financial values are, print it on your wall, have it out there so that you'll be able to remind yourself what were those goals that you wanted to achieve. And then with that, again, thank you, Cindy, for putting that workbook in there. And just to remind you, again, if you'd like to connect with me, learn a little bit more about how maybe we can expand on this conversation or give you some support to kind of achieve some more financial goals or that accountability partner, or maybe it's just kind of help you boost some confidence. Everyone, when I send my follow-up email tomorrow, there's going to be a free 30-minute clarity boost consultation in there. So if you want to have some further dialogue around this topic, we can connect based on your schedule. As well, I'm going to give everyone the link to that and the workshop recording. I mean, I'll remind you, if you didn't have a chance to grab the workbook, I'll put it in the email tomorrow. So again, if you have any questions, I'll be here. But thank you again, everyone. I really appreciated your dialogue, whether you were on camera giving us your audio or just your chat conversation. Really appreciated your participation today. If you have any other questions, reach out to me. You can find me on my website at lordfinancialcoaching.com or find me on social media. I try to post often on Instagram and Facebook, just trying to put out some tidbits, some lessons learned from my journey, or just some of the dialogue that I personally continue to grow every day, or just some financial literacy and educational materials out there. So again, I'm available if you want to stick around. We've got 12 more minutes in the workshop if you want to raise your hand, or I can try to answer any questions. But thank you again, everyone. I appreciate your participation. Any questions? Thank you all.
Thanks, Kathy. This was great.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. Good luck, Victoria.
Thank you.
Any other questions, anyone? It's good to see you, Jennifer. Well, you guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening now. For me, it's evening in Michigan. You guys enjoy. Bye now.
Bye.